Here with me, Jimmy Barnes of the Breaking Out Corporation, and I appreciate you doing this phone interview. Do you mind just kind of telling people a little bit about your organization and yourself?
Yeah, my name is Jimmy Barnes, and Breaking Out Corporation, which is my nonprofit, started for a simple reason of been a private investigator for about 15 years, and probably about 10 of those years I have done missing children cases worldwide. I have done executive protection and kidnap and rescue. And doing these cases and traveling to other countries, so I really started noticing and realizing what the heck this human trafficking was. And realized by finding some Americans overseas and, really anybody, any victim, and the hell that they go through, and there wasn't much being done about it to save them, So there was one time doing kidnap and rescue that which is a client pays you to go recover one of their loved ones that were taken or kidnapped, and as we were getting her out, and we noticed there's 10, 12 girls that were still there that we had to leave behind. So that didn't sit well with me. And that was really the inspiration to start a nonprofit that we could raise the money and get them all.
So even though your organization's called Breaking Out Corporation, it's a nonprofit, right?
It's a 501c3. Yep, it's a nonprofit.
That's neat. Yes. I mean, one of the things that just recently I was following was Bob Corker's efforts, with his international fund he's trying to create to combat, slavery and human trafficking. And I was always intrigued by it, and I've always appreciated the fact that there are people out there who are giving the bad guys a hard time, because it just seems like it seems like in some countries they just run rampant and they don't have anybody, going against what they're doing. And so when I saw Bob Corker getting involved with this, I was a little surprised, but apparently there were some people that had kept approaching him about it that had gotten him, interested. And so apparently, this international fund will be created. I don't know if you followed it much, but if it passes...
Yeah, it's amazing that was created. I'm very happy. We were contacted very recently by an American. She has an organization in India where she lives now, and it's an organization where the victims come. They have a shelter for them. They have places. She has a network of places that they can go for safety and recovery. But in India, which is a big percentage of human trafficking around the world comes from India. Or goes to India, by the way. But there's nobody there, including the law enforcement and so forth, that are getting these girls out, especially if they escape. So she was asking us if we can go there and train the select law enforcement that she had picked to train them as a team, on the investigations and all the stuff we know about human trafficking and how to recover these victims. And I'm really happy about that, if we can get the money to go. Because it's one of those things when we leave, it's the recovery effort and the rescue efforts are still going to be going on, constant. And that puts a big, damper on the bad guys to keep that pressure on them.
Right.
And that's what I feel we need in this country. Because we're way behind. We're way behind in this country. There's thousands of anti-human trafficking organizations, okay? And 95% of them are about awareness. And I know quite a few personally that make over $1 million or a couple $100,000. Well, I'm sorry, but I think we're all aware of it.
Right.
Now we have to do something, and that's where we we're trying to do. That's our thing. That's what differentiates us. And we do work in this country. We work a lot. I closed several big cases out here, working along with federal law enforcement. So it's really something that I think in this country we have to realize that you have to have that marriage between private and law enforcement.
And from what I understand, if this passes, that's exactly what will happen. The different countries, different and the municipalities will contribute funds, but also he will be seeking private money, and organizations like yours will be able to go to them, and apply for money to be able to take care of some of these problems in different areas.
Sure.
So
That's great, because human trafficking is not a local problem. It's worldwide.
right.
It doesn't stay in one spot. And that's an amazing find. If that passes, that would be amazing. I would love to see something like that.
Where do you see the biggest portion of people of traffic going to and from? Is it from one particular country to another, or is it, you know what I mean? Give people a sense for what.
I can tell you the United States alone, we are by the US State Department, okay, labels every country in the world, either a transition country or a source country, or so you're either transitioning through that country or you're a source for the victims. And the United States is both, it is a source country. And that should scare every listener into the truth. That means we're considered by the U.S. State Department to be a source country for victims of human trafficking. So I'm not a big fan of statistics, because a lot of them are misguided. But I can tell you from my experiences overseas that there's a lot of Americans that leave this country, in slavery and go outside the country where nobody knows them and there's nobody to get them. The other destination is called a destination country, and that means the victims come to this country as a destination, and that's what the United States is labeled as, a destination country and a source country.
Wow.
And it's hard to say the other countries because it's what's reported and what's not. And I'm not really up to date on every country, but I've worked a lot in Central America, and it's huge there. Basically, anywhere you have organized crime operating, you're going to find human trafficking.
One of the things I was curious about, do you have, and I know you can't get into details, but people are going to be curious about this kind of thing. Do you have a short story, like a success story you could share with us?
Sure. We completed one very recently. And this goes into what I was saying with the problems in this country. But basically, this was in southeastern United States. It was actually in my hometown, okay? And me and my partner, who's the vice president of the company, we went undercover inside of a Mexican nightclub for 3 years. We were undercover in there. It's 2 white people, but we got ourselves in, and we played very smart. This club was run by the Mexican cartels. And doing this undercover work for 3 years, we ended up with 2 women that got convicted of human trafficking. They were actually, we built up the trust and so forth for our story being undercover, but they were actually selling us girls that they were getting from different countries and bringing them in.
How much? What are? I hate to ask this question, but what are people worth? How do you put a price? How do they put a price tag on people?
She was selling us 3 girls, one of them being underage, for $1,500 down payment.
Good Lord.
And we were going to get her $2,000 more upon delivery.
Wow, that's amazing.
No, we didn't get that far with her. Of course, we exchanged the first money, and once the girls got here, of course, like I said, we work with federal law enforcement. That's when they came in and did the arrest and so forth. And we actually got the girls saved. And we found out, where they were keeping more girls. I mean, there was a whole bunch of girls that they had brought over at different times, and they were working them and using them with, sex trafficking and hand labor. But we had the whole house that got busted along with that. So we're pretty happy about that. We had a pretty good amount of victims rescued, and we got the 2 traffickers put in jail.
Right.
And the funny thing is, I think it's important for people to know, the one woman that we got arrested, who was the main person, she has 7 children of her own. So she's a mom of 7.
That's amazing.
The day she was going to bring us the girls, we had to wait till that evening because she had church that morning. So I say that because here you have a mom of 7 who goes to church on Sundays and was actually selling us girls for sex trafficking. I think that's important for people to know.
Yeah, that's crazy.
You know?
I wonder how, I know a lot of Bob Corker's efforts deal with, like in countries like you were talking about, India, where, and other countries where you have, I guess, children are bought and sold for slave labor. Is that
Yeah, slave labor is really big in India right now. Unfortunately, it saves everybody money when you're talking about the government money. They're building railroads, they're building all kinds of stuff. Slave labor is just as bad as to me, sex trafficking. I mean, it's pretty bad. You got 9-year-old kids that working 15, 16 hours a day with, minimum food and water, and under the motion like the old days of the whip, and they sleep in a little closet type thing on the floor. Of course, they don't get paid. The sex trafficking part, our latest intel report that we received from India was one of the brothels that we want to go to when we get over there. There was girls as young as 6 years old in there.
Wow.
That's just being prostituted out. 6 years old.
I think it's amazing. Most Americans don't know this kind of thing goes on. That they go through their daily lives, and we live in our cushy. I was going to say they live in there, but I live in a cushy home too. And you don't realize these types of things are going on. And when I saw Bob Corker, trying to create an international fund, I was like, this must be a big deal.
I mean, they don't. Well, Americans don't realize that this happens to Americans as well. And, our philosophy is we don't care where these victims are from. We don't care what color they are. We don't care what country they're from because they're victims. But a lot of people in this country do. So I mention Americans a lot because I've seen them taken overseas. By the State Department, there's over 2,100 children reported missing every day in this country. That's 2,000 children reported missing every day.
That's just hard. That's just a hard number to comprehend. You don't.
It is.
And you don't hear, but you never hear that on the news.
No. No, you don't. And what do you really think you would hear about a child that's missing being taken overseas, where we had, and I say we as far as the law enforcement, federal or local, anybody, doesn't have any jurisdiction in those countries. They're basically lost. And in that country, of course, they're not known, that they don't exist, right? So it makes more sense for the traffickers to, when they receive a victim here, why would they keep them here? And that's what people in this country don't see because they don't see it. They wouldn't keep them here. People are looking for them.
Right.
So they get them overseas where nobody knows them, they don't exist. And that's, like I said, in this country we don't see it, so it don't exist. And I'm here to tell you it exists. It exists a lot. And just so you know, we had a case a little less than a year ago with four girls missing out of Orlando, Florida, and we actually found them in Guatemala. And from my people on the ground there, we had pictures of them. We had pictures where they were staying. We had everything that we needed. And, brought it to the feds. And it would take them, because of the politics, of course, I understand, dealing with another country, but it would take them 6 to 9 months for them to get out there to save 4 American girls. Okay? So I think that's important for people to know.
Right.
In 6 months, I can tell you they're not going to be there anymore. That's why they don't go with that. It would be a waste of money. That's where they wanted us to go. We can go the next day. You know what I mean? So
right.
that's really the link we're filling.
Right, and like the U.S. military doesn't get involved with that kind of thing, right? If an American is that's what right.
Yes.
So you really need organizations like yours to be sort of a quick response type situation.
Right. You know, I mean, my dream is to have enough money sit in the bank where we can dispatch our team wherever we need to go. You know, unfortunately, that case I just told you about, we couldn't even raise the money to get the airline tickets, so we lost those girls. I lost a lot of sleep over that.
What does local law enforcement think of your types of organizations when people come there to try to recover? You know,
unfortunately, I mean, like I said, in this country, we don't do the rescues here because that's kidnapping. You know, we do the investigations, and we give it to law enforcement, and most of the time it's the federal law enforcement. You know, we've tried to work with local law enforcement.
I'm sorry, I meant like when you go to Guatemala, those places.
Oh, them.
Yeah, they're
honestly,
local.
When we go, we don't announce we're coming, and we have two people really that know that we're there, and that's the U.S. Embassy and the federal law enforcement. Because there's a lot of corruption, you know, here and there in those countries, and the less people know what we're doing over there, you know, the more safer it is for us.
Right.
You know, it's very corrupt. A lot of those countries, the police forces are usually involved with this as well. So, you know, we get in, we get out. And I said, any Americans who bring to the embassy, they know we're there. So,
you know, the stories will be. I don't mean to say stories like we're telling a story.
No, I know what you mean. It's the reality of it. It brings it to real life. You know. You
know, it's very. I mean, I remember the first time Nathan spoke to me about this kind of thing. I was like, really? You know, it's just like.
Right.
Are there really people like you that can, you know, go and you know investigate these things and take care of it and just have success and that people need to know, you know, so they can support this kind of stuff, you know.
Sure.
And that's what I'm trying to do is get the word out so that people can support the idea and organizations like yours and I get frustrated with I'm going through a similar situation with an effort I'm trying to lead here. I won't get into it, but it's that thing where, you know, you have so many organizations that are just awareness organizations.
Yes.
You know,
it bugs the heck out of me. I mean, these guys got money, and it bugs me.
You just want to see something done every now and then, you know.
Yes. I went up to one of these organization founders. This guy puts over $1 million in his pocket every year, okay? I actually went up to him in public, in front of everybody, and I said, have you ever even seen a victim? Have you ever looked one in the eyes? You know what I mean? Because if you have, you would never be able to do what you're doing. Put all that money in your pocket, you know what I mean?
Right.
You know, he didn't know what to say. But that's my point, you know? If we had $1 million, oh my gosh, you know how many people would be able to save? You know, we'd be out all over the place working all the time. You know, so it bugs you when you see these people scamming, really, you know, for awareness, getting all that money.
How do you balance your being known enough to raise money or awareness, you know, and actually, you know, to be able to do things, but also remain anonymous enough to still be able to go in and I guess you know what I mean? Are there security concerns?
No, I understand totally, and that's why. You know, right now it's important for us. For those 3 years that we were undercover, I had the organization, but I really had to shut it down. I mean, I couldn't announce, you know, I couldn't get it out there.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So, you know, it was quiet for 3 years, and you know, people always ask me, well, how long you guys been open? Well, you know, about 4 years. Well, you know, I never heard of you. Because 3 or 4 years, we were undercover, and that was more important to me, you know.
Right.
So we couldn't say anything, you know. Now we're kind of trying to get out there in the public and at the same time keep working, which in my position, you know, the more money we have, the more people I can get to do the work, and I can keep continuing to, you know, I do a lot of seminars in public, women's safety, child safety, stuff like that. You know, continue doing that, continue getting the funds and putting the teams together. So, you know, I could be in, you know, I had to accept I have to be in public.
What I'd love to see is this initiative by Bob Corker go through and there be, you know, like, his goal is $1.5 billion, for an international fund that people can go to, and that would be great. And I know people are like, well, don't we give out enough foreign aid? Well, this is not money going to some foreign dictator who's going to stick the money in his pocket. This is going to organizations like yours who are actually doing something,
Absolutely.
Or accomplishing something.
It's not cheap for us to do what we do.
Right.
It's expensive. I mean, we have to, our team is set up where everything is internal. And everything. We have nurses on our team for the victims. We don't bring them anywhere. We all do it internal until they get to the State House or the embassies. We have everybody's internal. And to get a team somewhere, housing them, everything that we have to do, our equipment and all of that, it's not cheap.
Right, I can imagine.
That's where our money goes, though. That's our cases here, our investigations here. We have cases in the United States, but if I start in Florida and this case brings me into North Carolina, okay, I have to drive there. I have to get there. I have to stay over. I have to have other people with me. Even the cases here are not cheap. So there's a lot more cases than there is money. Unfortunately.
Right.
That's who are working hard to raise money. I mean, that's where our money goes. We have a board of directors, and on the funding, they vote which case, where to go. So it's not like I have that control to say, oh man, we got $100 grand, let's go buy a car. That's not what we do. That's not who we are.
Right.
We get $100 grand, we're doing that could support us on an operation and save 10, 15 people.
Right.
So that's really good. And again, that's we made that promise to each other in the very beginning.
Well,
we can stay like that.
I think what you're doing is amazing, and it's just I think if more people knew about it, that there were actually people, groups doing actually saving people, they would be they would be more likely to support tax dollars going to this kind of thing, which is basically what we're talking about. But the initiative, the legislation Bob Corker's talking about would also raise private money. Also, there would be a partnership, a public-private partnership. So
before I just want to say one thing. I talked about that case that took us 2 years undercover. That was 2 years during the government shutdown. That was every weekend, times during the week. That was all night. 16, 17 hours a day we were working. I asked people there, I said, what law enforcement agency in this country do they know that could afford the resources to do a case like that?
Right.
You know what I mean? No law enforcement can put a couple officers out there for 3 years on this one case and 17 hours a day. They can't do that. We can.
Right.
And we could save taxpayers' money on law enforcement. We could save money for that because what we do is we get that information, we give it to law enforcement, we work with them. They do the arrest, they do all of that. We just get it on the ground, the investigation. So, I think that's important. Like I said, people need to know, what these kind of cases takes, the time it takes to do them. But the rewards are, worth it. Because like I said, when you see a victim in their eyes and they know they're safe now, that's a look you never get out of your head. That's what drives us.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you taking your time to let me interview you. I wish you the best, and I hope to stay in touch with you and
I'd love to.
Through Nathan.
Yes, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Anytime we can do something to help, get the word out. I don't have that big of a channel, but maybe we can do something. So,
I invite people like us. We have a Facebook, like our Facebook, and to kind of keep up with us and go on our website, and call us anytime, email us. We have a Twitter, and we got all that stuff.
I'll put all those links. I'll put all those links in the description of the video so people can check them out. So.
Great. Yeah.
Well, thanks a lot, Jimmy. I appreciate it a bunch.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay.
See you.
Bye-bye.
Nice.